And so, my dear ones, here we are, first Sunday of November. Can you believe it? And yet it is. And so all of the various sundry holidays have already begun. Last Sunday it begun with Diwali, the Festival of Life, and now we'll have all the other festivals of life happening throughout this holy season. And so today we're celebrating the circle of life. We're focusing on that in a way that's a bit more deeply than we normally do, and understanding that the circle of life is always evolving and it's always expanding and it's always going higher and deeper and wider and so on. And we celebrate that today as we look at the eternality of life, and especially through the eyes of our loved ones who have left this plane and gone ahead of us into a much more expanded awareness of who and what they are, and into a forward movement in their lives. Of that I have no doubt whatsoever, none whatsoever. Life continues. Life is eternal. You and I are the essence of eternality. We are the essence of eternality. And so our loved ones are always a part of us, and we're always a part of them, a deep, deep part of them, as they are of us. And they are aware of us as we are aware of them in some way, the way we don't know exactly how or in what way. All I know is, as I said this morning, and I often say, my mother still slaps me up the side of the head when I get ahead of myself, as she would think. She'd say, child, don't get ahead of yourself. And so, this is what we're celebrating today. We're here in joy, in joy. We're here to acknowledge, to honor, to affirm their lives, and to be thankful that we have been part of their lives and they very much a part of ours. We give great thanks to our loved ones who have gone before us for impacting us in such a rich and blessing way that we become more of ourselves because of them being a part of our lives. And that's what we're celebrating here today. We come with this sense and sensibility that we want to not only in our families honor our loved ones who have passed into the next experience of life, but we are also honoring them in the wider community. In the wider community, we remember them. We will always remember them, and they shall always be remembered. That's why we're here in this moment now. And it gives us an opportunity. They are the gift that really does keep giving. And they remind us as we celebrate their life eternal about our own eternal lives. They remind us of that. And they bring a gift to us today in that reminding. In the honoring of them, we think about how amazing life truly is, and indeed the circle of life. And it doesn't matter how long you're around on this planet, be it, for seconds or for, eons, like way into our hundreds, as that's where we're heading these days. It's still going to be a very, very small breath, just a breath compared to eternity. And so we learn as we're going through this life that life is all about changing and changing and changing, whether we like it or not. Change will come, change will happen, and we will change. Whether we go easily into that change or not, we will change. That's the nature of life, to change. But what we're focused on is changing and becoming more and more and more of our great good selves. And this is a beautiful thing and a thing to be desired. And so our loved ones give us that opportunity to remember that our lives are for one thing and one thing alone, and they are for living. They're for living. And we can't get caught up in what the song The Rose reminds us of, that some people are so scared of dying that they never learn to live. So scared of dying, they never learn to live. And a lot of people are scared of dying. There may be some of us in this room that are scared of dying, but there is no such thing as this thing called death. There is change. And as we are told by the great mystics and metaphysicians over and over again, we are bodies within bodies within bodies within bodies. When this body's ready to leave this plane, and allow the soul to go on and expand its experience of life, the soul of us will produce another body. And that soul of us will keep producing bodies and bodies and bodies and bodies and bodies ad infinitum throughout all of eternity. But the difference is every body that the soul produces will be a more refined version of the one that it experienced before. Like, we have a very wonderful example of that when Jesus made his transition, and when he, because somebody of his consciousness could do that, when he made his presence felt to his closest ones, he wasn't recognized. Mary Magdalene didn't recognize him because his body had changed, become more refined. And he asked them not to really touch him because he wasn't yet finished in that transition of moving ahead fully, because that came later for him, because he had things to do still on this plane and remind his closest ones of. And so it's a wonderful example of that. And we know that life continues. We really do, because you've had those experiences and I've had those experiences of our loved ones in some way or another, making their presence felt to us. We have thousands of records and so on of people who have had near-death experiences, and they talk about the encounters they have with their loved ones and so on and so forth. So it seems to me, anyway, to be a very natural and a normal thing. Because life is what? It's energy, and energy is indestructible, and energy cannot be destroyed. It cannot die. It cannot. It's the nature of energy to maintain itself and sustain itself. And energy behaves in very many and different ways. But energy is energy, and it will not be destroyed. And so neither will you or I, even though we may be hell-bent on destroying ourselves. It's impossible. It's not going to happen, so we may as well give it up. And here's the thing. When are you and I going to come into the awareness that life is indeed a celebration and that it's an amazing thing? A fact that you caused yourself to come into being, that somehow or another, out of all of the bazillions of possibilities that could have happened, you came through the bazillions of possibilities as an individualized expression of life and form, whereas all those others did not. You did. It's your best and most successful achievement in your entire eternal life. You can't up that one. You're amazing to just have managed to get yourself born. Incredible. So you're to be congratulated. And truly, when you get that, let's honor that in the way we live our lives, which is what our loved ones are probably, if you were to think about them looking in on us and chatting about it, saying, God, if they only knew what we know now, they just would not be making life so hard for themselves there. They really wouldn't. They would stop all the fretting and the worrying and the concerns and so on, and they would just be jazzed every day they opened their eyes into a new day, and they would just embrace life and just absolutely celebrate it and drink it all up and feel good at the end of every day of their lives. Because they advanced in some way or another. They succeeded in becoming more and more of their great selves. You see, the problem is, and the challenge is, that you and I forget that what we are in truth are spiritual beings becoming more and more and more advanced in the awareness of what life is all about, as well as human beings. We have to remember that's our true identity. We are evolving spiritual beings. That's what we are, not just human beings. And the humanity of us sometimes does us in. It really does, because it's our over-focus. Ernest Holmes says in his own simple words, he said, you can be certain that you will come home to yourself. You can be certain that you will come home to yourself. And look at what it is that occupies our minds and our energies all of the nonsense, the worries and the concerns and the feelings of inadequacy and the feelings of competition, and I have to because they have, and so on and so forth. I mean, it's just an incredible, crazy kind of way to live when you really know this is not who and what I am, and there's more to life than this. There's really more to life than this. So what is it going to be, our loved ones would say to us, still going to go on, painting yourself and doing life the hard way, or do you want to wake up a little bit? Do you want to really and truly enjoy your life? Do you want to? Because you could. Do you want to feel good about your life? Because you could. Do you want to really advance in your life? Because you can. You certainly can. Or do you want to keep going around in the circles of I can't? Do you want to live by the seat of your can'ts? Forever and a day? Because that's no way to live. Not when you know what you know, and let me tell you, you know it. You know it whether or not you and I apply it, whether or not we absorb it, whether or not we're conscious of it, whether or not we pay any attention to the inner, intuitive, voice that tells us, I take another think about that. I don't really think it's like that. Maybe there's another way of seeing this. But life is to be taken as the elixir that it is, to be drunk in a way that it nurtures and nourishes us, energizes us, so that we have the get-upness to get out there and do good by ourselves and do good by all life. That's what our loved ones would say to us, for heaven's sake. You're making it too heavy. You're making it too difficult. You're making it too complex. And it isn't. It isn't. You can know joy. You can feel good about life. You can accomplish what you're here to accomplish, which is the achieving of you knowing that you have become the best of yourself. That you are true to yourself, that you honor yourself, that you know who you are, and in the knowing of who you are, your life thrives and it flourishes and it expands. And everywhere you go, you lift everything up, because of how you are, the essence of you. You don't have to do even anything. You don't even have to say anything. It's just your sheer essence. When you enter a room, will lift the whole thing up, will light the whole thing up. Because that's what you are in essence. This is what you're here to be. This is what you're here to discover and know about yourself. No matter what the past is, but that requires and demands a sovereignty. And of course, it's everywhere, this thing called duality. And it's well covered in the handbook, that Ernest Holmes' handbook, this thing called duality, the field of opposites, opposite good and bad, God and devil, and so on. I don't have to spell them out, And Ernest Holmes says, know this, there is no devil, God is love. God is love. Those are his very words. There's no devil. God is love. Now, how can love produce a devil? And God only knows God's self. And the good and evil thing, you and I experience evil. Yes, we do. But it doesn't come from life, from the wholeness and the completeness of life, from God, this thing we call God. Infinite intelligence wouldn't know how to create evil. It's infinite intelligence, for heaven's sake. It has nothing to do with infinite intelligence. It's a human construct. Human construct. And it belongs to the human domain and nowhere else. And it arises out of the fact that we misuse the one power, the one energy, and the one intelligence. We misuse it by thinking and feeling along the lines of negativity. And life is not negative in any way. It affirms, and it only affirms. And Ernest Holmes also says too, he says, It's never going to happen. No one is ever missing or lost in or to God. No one. That'd be like saying, who says, God can lose God's self. That's impossible. Or God could be missing God's self. It's impossible. Everyone, he says, it's a certainty, will come home to their self. Sooner or later, through this wonderful evolutionary state of being, we will wake up one day and we will know ourselves, truly know ourselves. And in the knowing of ourselves, we will know all of life. We will know without the shadow of a doubt that all of life is all of me, and I am all of life. I am everything, I am everyone, and everything and everyone is me, because I am connected to the whole circle of life. I am part of the whole circle of life. Just as the drop is the essence of the ocean, as the sun's ray is the essence of the sun, just as the drop is connected to the ocean and you can't separate the two, just as the sun's ray is directed, is absolutely part of, coming from the actual sun, so too am I connected to my source in that way. I am the breath in the breath of Source's life. I am one of those breaths in the breath of the source of life. And so are you. You can't disconnect it. It's all one thing. So I'm an important aspect, as you are an important aspect of all of life. And without you, all of life could not be complete. Do you understand that? Without you, that's how significant, that's how important you are. Life could not be complete. You could not say life was complete without you. That's significant for us all to know. So how do we treat ourselves knowing this? How do we think about ourselves knowing this? How do we think of others by knowing this? There is no less than person on this planet than anybody else. There's no greater person on this planet than anybody else. How could anything be greater than divine substance itself? It cannot be, and you and I and all of us are the essence of divine substance, as is all of creation. Now, this is something that the human mind grapples with because it's human. But when you and I take ourselves out of the exterior material plane, the plane of form, and enter into the inner sense and awareness of ourselves as energy, as light, we do get a sense of that. We do understand all of this at that level. And it's a level without words. It's an intuitive sensation. And you cannot describe it. And if anybody tries to, it's not what they're saying. It's more than that. You cannot describe it. It has to be experienced. Now, all of us can line up in front of a sunset, and we're all going to experience that sunset differently. But we will all experience sunset, but differently. We all have different experiences of a one thing, And so the inner life is not a life of words and concepts and ideas. It's a world of knowing. It's not even a world, it's a state of knowing. It's a state of awareness. That's what it is. So as we celebrate our loved ones, my goodness me, we have to understand that they are very much present to us as ever they were in another way. Because the other world, or the next world, is all around us. It's all about us. They didn't go away anywhere. They just moved into another dimension of experience. In my Father's house, there are many mansions. There are so many dimensions for you and for me to experience. And Ernest Holmes did not believe that you had to come back here at all. He did not believe that. He said, I don't believe that, because life is evolutionary. It's in a forward movement. It goes forward. It doesn't go back. It expands itself. It doesn't contract. So he believed absolutely that you didn't have to come back here at all. Now, on the other hand, I would say, if it is going to evolve you greater, I don't know, it's just a thought I had, as well, if it's an expansive experience for you and you choose to come back in service to something or another, why not? Why not? I mean, chocolate's a good reason to come back, isn't it? I mean, why not? So I wouldn't be absolute about anything, because the truth is, I don't know. I mean, for somebody else, it might be wine or cheese. I don't know. But in service to something greater and bigger than ourselves. That's why all the great ones that are amongst us, and there are great ones amongst us now, advanced, individualized expressions of life, we don't even know about most of them. But they're here to make sure we really don't make a super duper mess of it all. And, to help us not forget too much in a way that we can't come back from whatever it is. But we can always come back from anything that's going on in our lives, because that's what life is. Intelligence, intelligence, and intelligence. You are the intelligence of life. And if you and I can form a real relationship with that infinite cosmic intelligence, we can solve any problem. We can accomplish any good thing. We can expand and expand and expand in a way that is kind of visceral, palpable. So our loved ones today are saying, well, get a giddy up here. Get a giddy up here. Your time is running out on the planet, even if you do live to be 150. What is it you want to do for the rest of your life, and who do you want to be for the rest of your life, and how do you want to show up for the rest of your life? What do you want to think for the rest of your life? What do you want to feel for the rest of your life? What do you want to do for the rest of your life? These are very good questions. And that's what life is asking us. And when I say life, I mean love, because our loved ones are loved. So love asks us these questions, because love is what life is. It's what God is. It's what infinite being is. It's what you are. It's what I am, even though we may not behave ourselves like that. But that's the truth of us. We are love. But love is strong. And love does not invite codependency. Love is strong. It's sovereign. It knows what bodes well and what doesn't bode well. It knows what's right and true and what's not right and true. It knows what's in keeping with the divine order of things and law of things, which is the law of love and action. So we can be sovereign in our own right, and we can know that we know how to protect ourselves, take care of ourselves, and flourish and thrive as a self. This is important for us all to know. So we honor those loved ones. We honor them, and we honor them deeply and profoundly. Those who have gone before, those who have impacted our lives deeply, those who have brought so many blessings to us, and those who have made us better people for the knowing of them. This is a mutual celebration. They're celebrating us as we are celebrating them. Love will always have its presence felt in some way or another, because that's how love is. That's how love is. Love gives itself and never stops giving itself along the lines of what is supportive and advancing and uplifting and empowering. That's how love gives. And it never exacts anything. So be assured there is no terrible, awful judgment on the other side. Again, Ernest Holmes says, you're the one that judges yourself. You're the one that gives to yourself. And you're the one that robs from yourself. You're the one. If there's any judgment going on, it's because of you yourself and what you have created. It comes back to judge you. And there is no divine retribution demanded. There is none of that. And life is action, and life goes on. Life is action, and life goes on. And remember, if you're thinking about heaven and a heavenly court and a heavenly choir, you're going to be sadly disappointed. There will be no sovereign anthropomorphic God sitting up in a big throne with a pile of angels all around him, and then graduating the saints and all the good people that come there. And then some of us will be just inside the door in the back row. It's not going to be like, how boring would that be, sitting around all day long just adoring this image that we think is God. It never made much sense to me when I gave it due thought. There was, as a child, I'd rather be out playing and running through the fields than in that kind of an environment. But anyway, there is no evil except the evil that comes out of our ignorance and our misuse of the power that is ours. God is all there is only God, and God is love. And we are told, and we who abide in love abide in God, and God abides in each one of us. That's what the ancient wisdom is. So we need to cheer ourselves up and stop being so morbid about this thing called death. There is no death. I mean, we have to do what Rumi did. Rumi was thrilled. He dressed himself up as a bridegroom. Yeah, he dressed himself up as a bridegroom, and his celebration of his life went on for months and months and months. He was thrilled to be making his journey into his next expanded experience, and there was partying up and down the yin-yang forever. You see, now if we could do that, now I know we're not helped by some of the ways we celebrate people's passing. Some of them are very heavy and so on and so forth. And that's not to say that in the midst of the laughing and the celebrating and the dancing, we're not crying and sorrow and sadness doesn't overwhelm us, because we're going to miss the physicality of the person. And that's okay. That is okay. But understand this, our loved ones don't want us to carry on like that for too long. That if anything would disturb them, I think, on the other side of this life, it would be to see the sorrowing and sadness in us forever, because we thought they were lost to us. That would be the only thing. We do that when it overwhelms us and it takes us up into that sense of loss. And the more loss we feel and the more pain of that we feel, it's because of the great love we had. The greater we love, the deeper the sense of loss. And it's a beautiful human aspect of ourselves. But it passes, and we must help it to pass. And the way we help that is to be around those people who are suffering grief and loss at any given time, and be a support for them, and cradle them, and be that, be that presence for them that is a nurturing and a healing and a nourishing presence. So, all glory and praise through your loved ones who have gone, our loved ones who have gone before us, for life to be lived continually through them and through you and through me in the ongoing process of our lives. So I am so delighted to have this opportunity to honor our people like that, our loved ones like this, in public as well as in private, in the community, because everywhere their name is mentioned, they are viscerally remembered, and they are a stronger part of us, and we do remember them. And so, in conclusion, I'm just going to read that beautiful, it's a Jewish prayer actually. And it says, in the rising of the sun and in the going down, we remember them. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember them. In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember them. In the blueness of the sky and in the warmth of the summer, we remember them. In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember them. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember them. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember them. When we have joys we yearn to share, we remember them. So long as we live, they too shall live, for they are now a part of us, and we remember them. And so, my dear ones, we will have, in a little bit, we'll have the ceremony of the flowers. And what happens is people who have a flower will come up and put the flower in the basket, which is a remembrance of our loved ones and just an honouring of them. If you don't have a flower, some of us are happy to share, and just put your hand on the basket anyway. And so thank you for being here on this wonderful day. And remember, we're not alone. Our loved ones are with us. The place is full of that beautiful energy as we remember them.